Where does that work?
Well, I was going to ask you the same question. I was going to say, so you want me to go first? Because I'm going to say, or do you want to go first? Okay, right. So where does that work ethic come from? It's quite simple for me, which is that I've had to be self-sufficient from a very early age. So I had no choice. And yeah, so I had to take care of me. As simple as that.
Say more things.
Hey?
Say more things.
Say more things. My background. So this is interesting because there's only one reason I don't talk about my background, okay?
Go on.
And this came up quite recently, actually, to solidify me to be able to succinctly explain this. I was looking for a PR to help support me. And they were going, well, what's your story? Because, you know, the kind of thing you want to do, it's really hard to get into. You've got to have a really good story. So what's your story? So, for instance, I work with someone who is, and they gave me a list of things that this person had been through of adversity, which were fabulous, and they were a fabulous person, and they really, you know, and I'm like, wow, they sound fabulous. I'd really like to meet them. And she was like, you know, they have done all of these things. What have you done? And I responded with, well, actually, I could explain that to you, but I've always found that I've not needed to in order to inspire other people. So I'm happy to talk about it, but I also, interestingly, don't like to use it as a way to inspire. I don't think that, you know, because we're all born of an egg, right? We change every day. We change hourly sometimes. Well, if you're a female, you change minutes sometimes, right? And, you know, men will go, oh, we're so consistent, and women will go, so are we. And both parties will go, no, you're not. But we're all changing, right? All the time, even if we notice it or not. And if we take stock and if we look back, we're all changing. So just because of where I came from was difficult doesn't mean that it in any way inspires me today. But it did then. So I had to work. You know, I was on my own. I'm 14 and I have to make sure that I can take care of myself financially, you know.
But that explains why you work and why you work hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't explain why you treat the place that you work at as if it was your own.
So I think that only comes along with the standard thing. It can only be about my internal standard. And because I'm somebody who, if you sat me down at any point and said, what do you want in life? I'd go, I haven't got a clue. And I love saying to people, you don't have to know what you want, seriously. But if you know what you don't want, that's a really good start. And that's where I sit. I'll go, you know, if there's, we all go through difficulties, right? So sometimes we're like, I need to work out what it is I want. I need to work out what it is I need to get right. And it's like, I don't think you do. I don't think anyone does. I think if you can say what doesn't work for you, and if you can say what you don't like, then that's enough. Because what we like changes all the time, and we imagine what we don't like, and that changes too. But it's easier to relate to what we don't like and stop doing things we don't want to do, right? So for me, it's about standard, and I've just always had a really high standard. Now, again, that wasn't taught to me. I just have that. And I think the interesting thing for me has been that it took me till recently, and hence the whole going on this, I want to mentor people, is that it comes from a really genuine place. Because for me, it has to. You know, I've met 1 million people, however many, but we'll go with 1 million. Sounds like a good number over the years. And I kind of look at that and go, and there's been so many people that I know have been doing what they do for an end result, and they absolutely don't relate to the reasons they're doing what they're doing. it's not important to them. It's just a means to an end. It's financial. It's very logical, and it's a confusing Venn diagram. I don't know about yourself, but I'm so confused. It's a confusing Venn diagram in the sense of that it's so important to me to be authentic and real, and it comes from a genuine place. But I'm capitalist. I want to make good money. I want to pay that forward. I want to have things. I like things. I'm not saying I don't. But at the same time, it's like, well, there's only so much I need, and I want to pay the rest of that forward. And I'm just aware that there are people in the world that will do what they need to do for their selfish end result. And they have absolutely no care in the world for anyone else whilst they get that. Now, I'm not here to judge that. That's not what I'm about. I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested in being a person that's authentic, who does well and is successful, but that success also makes other people successful. And that is however they see what their success is, not what I believe success is. It's really important to me. So it's taken me this long to embark on the mentoring thing, because I have to come from a genuine place, not just, I don't want to make money, it's not about, I'm doing it for a living. I'm doing it because I've got to pay the bills. I'm doing it because I genuinely want to just help other people somehow improve if that's what they want.
The companies that you mentor, do you find any similarities in the companies that you mentor?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky because this kind of personality seems to attract a certain kind of mentoring. So there is always some kind of synergy. Mm-hmm. So I'm there to teach, but I learn as well. And it's very open dialogue on that. And I'm there to help. But I love being able to talk to a young company, for instance, and they're like, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? And I'm like, sure it is. But I'm also going, thanks for that. Do you know, you did something that I'm going to take back to my team, and then watch them go, really? Validation is so important to people, right? And that's interesting because I don't need a lot of validation in my life. It's kind of, I've needed to create that, right? So just kind of be able to go, well, is this all right? And answer the same question, and answer the question I ask. But I enjoy giving other people validation, but it's recognizing when they want it, because there's a fine line between validation and, pretentiousness.
We're patronizing people.
Yeah.
I mean, that steering slightly away from the business thing. The
yes,
fact that you don't need validation, or at least you say you don't need validation.
Yeah, in general.
But you enjoy giving it to other people means
Absolutely.
that you recognize its value.
Very much so.
But not being a psychiatrist, you don't expect it.
No.
So you just create a barrier. So I don't need it. Like, is that what's happening?
No, I don't know if it's a barrier necessarily, or just that it's not. It's not even necessarily a barrier that necessarily I don't always use language that will allow me to ask for validation without, because you don't go, can you validate me, please? That's not what we do. We set ourselves up, and validation just happens. Yeah. Okay, and that hasn't always come easy in life for me, that I've set up the language for that. Whereas over the past few years, I see validation everywhere. And it's not from direct, wow, well done you. That's amazing, Azam. That was brilliant. It's not about that anymore. It's about, you're welcome. It's more about that people just say things and I go, validating. So I've never needed the direct validation. So I think you would be right if you go back 1 billion years ago when I was younger and prettier. I would need that I was putting a barrier up. But these days it's more that I can find validation in just the conversation. It's natural. So I don't need someone to hand me validation. My brain is, rounded enough to say, that was really validating. Which I think is really important in humans, is rather than looking for certain specific validation, if we can take validation from the situation we're in ourselves, I think we'd all be,
So
we'd feel more validated anyway.
How does PR come into this? Because the mentoring thing, I understand, and I can definitely see how you would bring value to almost any company, right? Because I've always said this thing about like the star players that every company needs. You need legal, accounting, marketing, and coach or mentor. So where does the PR fit in? Because I see it from the marketing point of view.
Yeah.
How have you added that? Where are you?
From my own perspective, really, in the sense of that, I think that they go hand in hand.
Okay.
So they're two very different elements, but I think you need both. And I think, for me, it's about people understanding that marketing is an 8-dimensional subject. And PR is one dimension of that, and marketing is another dimension of that, and editorial is another dimension of that, and podcasting like this is another dimension of that. But I could sit here and market my company, but I could also PR my company, and I could also PR myself, which is what I'm doing right now, right? By just sitting here talking to you, I'm just winging it and going, you'll either like me or you won't, and you'll resonate with that, and somehow that will draw people to me. Or it may be like, well, people will draw their own assumptions, but the people who are drawn to this are the people I want to talk to, right? They're the people I want to spend time with.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I have a water company, a water filtration question for you.
Okay. God, you're going to make me geek it out.
To bring it back full circle. Well, I don't know about geek out, but so there's been something of a scandal with the water companies in this country. With the
letting into the sea?
That's the one.
That's the one. Is that the one you want?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that good? So I'm not that kind of water company, just saying. I'm not a treatment company that throws it in the sea. Yeah.
Well, so, but do you have your finger on the pulse of that conversation?
Well, I think so, because I managed to work out what you were talking about without you telling me anything. So I'd like to think I did.
So what's gone on? Because I'll tell you the story that I know.
Okay.
And you tell me where I've made a mistake.
Okay.
So water companies went private, I don't know when. I don't fully understand how a water company, a national utility like that, can become privatized without it being a monopoly. Because it is a monopoly. That's exactly what monopoly is.
Oh, we're going to get controversial now,
anyway,
and I agree with you.
So Thames Valley Water and all the rest of it, these are now private companies. There was a lot of deregulation where they could, if it was raining, you could spill untreated sewage into the rivers and waterways because the infrastructure wasn't there to manage it at that point in time. But we promise we will. Yeah, I know. So they promised that they would. We're in a bit of a crisis, your governmentness. Thanks for letting us buy this water company. However, infrastructure problematic. If it rains, floods, we can't really manage it. So could you please deregulate so that when it rains and there's a risk of flooding, we can do some sort of spillery. But with all the money you've been giving us and all the rest of it, and with excess profits, we will fix this infrastructure in return for you selling us this water company. And none of that happened. None of the infrastructures happened, and they just took tons and tons of profits out of the company, and they spilled not just when it was at risk of flooding, but
are you trying to wind me up?
Also when it rained, but also when it was dry days as well, which has actually not been deregulated. That's still illegal. And then they said, oh, sorry, you can have it back now. We don't want it no more. We've taken all the profits out of it. We haven't done a bit of the stuff we said we were going to do. See you later. Is that what happened?
Yeah. And
So how come
God,
nobody's
you're going to
been...
make me rant any second.
Go, do the rant.
No, because
you know the stuff.
yeah, but the point being is that it's not just about water that this has happened.
Go, say more.
Hey,
What else has it happened to?
or the military. It's happened to the military.
Okay.
It's happened to the electricity boards. It's happened to transport, right, where it's been taken away. And basically, all these organisations have... I'm really going to have to watch my language now, because all organisations have created relationships with various governments, and government have just handed them money and done backhanded deals in various ways, and somehow government people connected to the government have made money at that, and the taxpayer, the person paying the bills of their electricity, their water, and getting on the transport every day, are the ones who are paying more money for a shitter service, and somebody is making a lot of money behind that every time, and it's shameful.
Okay. But that is what's happened.
Absolutely.
And no one's going to prison for it.
No, it's corrupt. I don't even know if this is libelous now. I don't even know if I can say what I'm saying now, because,
But is it true?
Yes. I can't, but if somebody came to me and went,
Prove it.
then
We've not
am I
named
liable?
anyone.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's name people. No.
No.
So here's a question. So if you're spilling untreated waste into the waterways and that water is flowing back into people's pipes, so what happened down in the southwest where they said, actually, you can't drink tap water anymore?
Well, it was partly to do with they weren't ready for it, so to speak. So our water treatment facilities in the UK are very good. At source, at everyday capability, and the people who are doing the on-the-ground job are good at their job, right?
Okay.
This now all goes up to corporate level where it's like all virtual, but it's not the boardroom where everyone's like sat there going, oh, let's do this, let's do that. Now, in answering your question, when it was a case of that point where they couldn't drink water, that's because there was a need to be able to make sure that they cleaned that well enough before it went back out. There are parameters that are set for safety that are being met. Yeah. So the safety of water is not in question here.
Okay.
That's not. I'm not here to say that water is unsafe. I'm not going to say that, because everyone is creating safe water to drink in this country. The issue is the amount of money that is being given to people who have no interest in keeping the water safe here.
Okay.
That's my problem.
So the water is safe?
Yeah, of course it is. And this is the interesting thing. With water filtration in this country, it's about, there's several reasons. So part of it is just about personal taste. They don't want the fluoride in the water. They don't want the chlorine in the water. They don't want to drink that. It's personal taste, and then they'll want to make changes. For some, it's you need to remove certain things out of the water in order to make your job easier. That's already there that you can drink. That it's not gonna harm you at all. I work with a lot of smaller water filtration companies that will like to go, oh, you don't want to drink that, even in the UK, that's really bad for you. Right? It isn't. Water isn't the problem in the UK of drinking it out of a tap. It's about personal changes and also professional changes that you make to water in the UK.
So I'm going to say something dumb.
It won't be dumb.
So when one of these large water companies spills sewage into the water, billions of tons worth of sewage into the water, and that doesn't end up back into the tap. That's all filtered out before it hits the tap. Oh, that's cool. That's good to know.
Yes.
So we're not expecting a dysentery outbreak in the UK.
No.
So why did they switch off the water in Devon? Why did they tell people you're not allowed to drink that water?
Because it will have been such an influx into the system, and there could have been failure at that water waste system, treatment centre system, be it for overload or be it just something happened even separate to an issue, that they will have just gone, stop, this is a big fat no.
Understood.
We need to check. Because the checks in place in the UK are strong. The checks in place in the UK are safe. And
I understand.
yeah. And we do have, one of the best water treatment system capabilities and legislations in the world.
So there's no need for people to have a special filter fitted to their taps and stuff like that?
There's no need for it, no. So, people do it because, so if you're doing it at base level, just at domestic level, as I say, people want to remove chlorine or fluoride from the water because they don't agree with what's in the water, so they just want to remove things for themselves, and that's a personal taste. Sometimes odour can be a bit of a problem to some people, so they want to remove the odour. Different parts of the world have different amounts of lime scale in their water, so the amount of white you get in your kettle or around your tap. And so you can treat the water to soften it so that when
What are these jugs doing?
The water jugs, they're basically removing chlorine, is the main thing that they're removing. They're just reducing the chlorine in the water.
Is that a good thing? Sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have to put a lot of chlorine in the water to clean it. And if it's a personal taste that you would like to not have that chemical.
What's that chemical like in the body? Does the body like that chemical?
Well, I'm not a doctor, right? But so I'm not really here to sort of comment on that sort of thing in the sense of that it's all about personal, it's a personal experience. If you do your reading or if you do your research on different things, and if we're talking about water specifically, if you look at that and it resonates with you to say, I don't like that, then you use a filter to take that out.
Gotcha.
But water is safe here. But we're talking about domestic water, yeah? So, for instance, and that's what I'm saying, at that level, it's kind of small fry in the sense of making sure that you've not got enough, you've reduced the lime scale in your water to make sure your boiler system works so it lasts 10 years longer rather than getting clogged up, or if you are a fish keeper, that the water that you produce for your very expensive fish in the pond that you have is beautiful for them and it's going to keep them well and reduce disease and the money you've invested in having that pond and stuff. That's small fry. Then let's look at organisations where Legionella is a big deal and happens because of stagnant water in pipe work. And in all commercial buildings, we should be making sure that Legionella isn't there because of the bacteria, and that's obviously it's a public health hazard. And when you are a company owner, you want to make sure that public health hazard is not, it's a health and safety issue. So there is more responsibility for companies to make sure that they are not that their water systems are working in a manner that are not going to produce Legionella. So it means that all companies need to test their water. So that's something we do, is that we'll be testing the water. But we've kind of gone one step further on that because it's very labour intensive testing the water. So you just have to make sure that water doesn't just sit, that it's pushed through the system. And if it's regularly pushed through the system, then Legionella can't grow, basically. And at a certain temperature, right? So you have to keep the water at a certain temperature and you have to keep it moving. So it means that if you have large organisations and you have heating in those systems, you need to make sure all different water areas flush regularly to stop Legionella. And so from that perspective, what you need to do is you need somebody to go in and run the taps and then test the water at various points throughout different parts of the building. So this is where, I've kind of gone, that's a lot of work it's a lot of responsibility and a lot of work. So the software side that I work on outside of logistics is connected to the water side, but more the management side. We've sort of created a lot of software around the facilities management, and one of those is automated water testing systems. So, I mean, I could tell you, we were talking about AI earlier, and I go, we do a bit of AI. But, so we create sensors that you can just put on different parts of the pipe, and those sensors talk to the database, and it will just say to you, you need to go flush that tap.
Oh, wow.
And your temperature is correct. And if it's going to drop below temperature, the sensor will tell the database and just let you know. So you can go, we need to go do that. So it means that you need less water testing, that you're just maintaining your system better. Mm-hmm. So we've had a huge pickup on that within the water industry, because obviously it streamlines processes a lot. So, yeah. Uh-huh. But off the back of that, we can't, typical me, I was like, what else can we do, kind of thing. And when we created on the facilities management company, we've kind of built a whole AI software, and it allows, so you could have a multi-site location across the world, and you could have lights, you could have a water system, you could have various sort of manufacturing environment. So maybe you have machines that work, or conveyor belts. So you might be in let's say you're manufacturing soda. You've got lots of conveyor belts, or you're manufacturing cheese, and you've got conveyor belts that wrap, and vats that create, mix the cheese and wrap the cheese, and then send the cheese on a conveyor belt, then send the cheese to a packing area, and then put the cheese in, as well as obviously put the cheese in a fridge or in a warm area, depending on what kind of cheese you're making. Every element of that we can automate. So if you imagine you're taking the cheese from its milk to its end result, but in a building that's got lights and a water filtration system, or would require a water filtration system, or just has water in it, with all the people that are working in it are going through turnstiles and need to clock in and clock out. Mm-hmm. So there's all those systems that we've created a system that with AI that can control all of that, or one bit of that. So we can go, we have sensors that can set, so your operations person or your facilities manager can sit down in the morning and can press a button and can open a database and go, we've got 300 LED lights, and in sector 1 we've got 2 out. And we can go as far as that the system will say, hey, you've got two lights out in sector 1. Would you like me to order those for you?
This is nice, isn't it? This is the future.
Yeah. And so they can just go, yes, please. And those lights will be ordered and they'll be delivered, and then they can be obviously installed. And it's just saving time, and streamlining. So they could look at the water system and go, yeah, I need to go to area X and just flush that system, because that's not been flushed for the past 7 days, so I can flush that system. You could look at that and go, okay, so the conveyor belt B has been running now for this many hours, because at the moment people maintain every 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and they just do that maintenance, but we actually measure the hours. So it means you get your maintenance and services done at the time it's required, rather than just in standard. So if you have an uplift, you might need to measure, you might need to service quicker. So say you've been really busy and the conveyor belt's been working twice as hard. So instead of being 6 months, it's 3 months that you need to maintain it. The system will go, it's done its hours. It needs a service. Would you like me to book the service engineer to come out and do that now? If the VAT's the same, how many litres of water or product has gone through those VATs, that can be measured, and it can say, you've now reached your limit on that, it now needs checking. We can do it with plant hire equipment. We can attach software to the plant hire equipment, so it'll tell the system your forklift has been working for this many hours. It now needs servicing. So you can either have somebody who then goes and books all of that and deals with all that, or we can take it as far as shall we book that for you? And so we've sort of created an AI for facilities management, which is kind of unusual, shall I say? I shouldn't say that out loud because I'm talking about something because obviously it's not known in industry. What we've got is not known in industry.
Okay, so I'm going to take a slight left.
Okay, do it.
So I was at a networking event a little while ago. I don't really like those things, but I was at one anyway. And there were a couple of different presentations. Loved them all. One of them was by a businesswoman who was talking about women breaking the glass ceiling. And I groaned internally because I was like, surely no one cares about this.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a thing anymore. Surely it's not a real thing. It doesn't still happen. This isn't the 50s, is what happened in my head.
Okay.
Right. Aren't we just in a meritocracy? And the reason I say that is because I say the same thing for the most part, about when people talk about race and things like that. Please. It's not a thing. Is it really a thing?
But is it not? You can answer that question.
I've never felt it. I've never felt it in my professional capacity. I might be naive, but I've never felt it in my professional capacity.
Okay.
So my question is this. You clearly know your stuff. How have you found it as a woman in business? And is it just the dinosaurs? Is my question.
Misogynism is everywhere. It isn't just for men.
But is it real? Or is it just a reason to be a bit of a douchebag?
Okay, so misogynism is everywhere, and it's not just for men.
Okay, that's an interesting statement.
Internal misogynism is as real as misogynism.
Meaning?
So women have misogynism to deal with too. But that's because they were taught by men.
So they themselves will rather choose a guy over a girl for a certain task? Is that what you mean?
To a degree. I think it's slightly more... It's less noticeable than that, because even women who are staunchly here for women still have to check their internal misogynism. I still do.
What does it mean? What do you mean by internal misogyny?
Okay, so if we take it at top line, where I think we would agree that in general society will say that women aren't very nice to women. That's internal misogynism. When a woman is not being kind to another woman, it's her internal misogynism that's causing that. And that's because she was taught by a misogynistic man how to treat a woman.
You think that's why women are mean to one another? It's because they were taught by a misogynistic man on how to treat a woman. That's an interesting thing to say.
And the reason why, so a lot of people would say, well, women are mean to women because, well, they're just in competition with each other and, well, they're threatened by another woman and all of that sort of thing. But guess who told them that they would be threatened by another woman? It was a man.
Was it? But, I mean, how would that conversation go? Hey, babe, look, come here, just real quick.
No, it's not, is it? Because fathers teach that to their daughters. Brothers teach it to their sisters.
Do they?
Yeah, women
But
watch
how?
other men. Women watch other men talk to other men about women.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's true.
Women all over. You know, we talk about, so it's really interesting because, you know, I talk to people all the time and they'll go, I talk about patriarchy and misogynism and all that sort of thing. And, you know, the biggest callback I get from some men is patriarchy doesn't exist. And I'm like, okay, do you know what? Fine, I won't talk to you about the patriarchy, but I will talk to you about misogynism, which absolutely exists because every human being on the planet, man, woman, or any identity is misogynistic, but it all came from man.